Welcome back. This morning in our Sunday Spotlight, the fascinating backstory of the 1983 Wells Fargo heist, as seen through the eyes of an artist whose work is now on display at the Wadsworth. Sofia Gallisa Muriente is joining me from Puerto Rico this morning to talk about her exhibit in Hartford and what she hopes visitors to the museum learn from it. Sofia, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. This is such a big story. You know, here at Channel 3, we've been covering this story since 1983. And people in Connecticut have heard about this Wells Fargo heist, the Wells Fargo Depot in West Hartford. Of course, Victor Herrera, the mastermind behind this, and he's still on the run after 30 years on the FBI Most Wanted list. Why this story, and why did you want to tell it the way you did in this documentary style?
Sure. Well, obviously, it's a fascinating story that for many people is almost mythical, right? It's almost lore. And I visited Hartford in 2009, I believe, with my father. So it was the first time that I had a chance to get to know the Puerto Rican community in Hartford and some of its history. Um, And ever since then, I was very interested in not just this story, but thinking about the broader history of the Puerto Rican community in Hartford. You know, what has driven migration there? How has that community taken shape throughout the years? And also, you know, how it remembers this incident. A lot of my work has to do with, you know, stories that are under-recognized or that in different ways kind of evade institutional archives, right? And their survival depends more on people retelling these stories and passing them on through generations. And so I'm interested in the way history takes shape in that way. And a story like this one is a story like you mentioned that many people remember. And so I was really interested in expanding what we think we know about it through the stories of many different people who not only knew Victor Herrera or Gloria Herrera, his mother, who was an incredible community organizer and social worker in Hartford, but who, you know, belong to this broader history of Puerto Ricans in Hartford, and whose experiences are connected in many different ways to the experience of Victor and Gloria.
Well, I know you have a connection to this. You mentioned Gloria Herrera. You met her during your trip to Hartford. And not only that, but your dad had some research he did on this back in the day as well, right? So it's sort of a family connection for you.
Well, yes, in many different ways. I think my father was also very interested in kind of the people's history, to put it in some way, of Puerto Rico, and how do we document and disseminate these largely untold histories, not just of Puerto Rican resistance, but of community leadership and community work. I think Gloria Herrera, for example, is such an incredible you know, iconic leader that is remembered by so many for her work pushing for bilingual education and access to all sorts of social services for the broader Latino immigrant community in Hartford. And I was really interested in understanding, you know, kind of this history that connects, you know, the migration to work in tobacco fields in the Connecticut River Valley, with then, you know, all of the professionals who started being recruited to come from Puerto Rico to work as service providers, as social workers, but also as teachers or in many other roles, and how those people also started pushing for organizing in order to get, you know, access to services, to city services, but also, you know, establish cultural centers and political movements, and to this day, you know, still continue to be such an important part of the city.
Now, we're talking about a theft of $7 million. In today's money, that would be $23 million. You know, of course, Victor Herrera aligned with Puerto Rican nationalists seeking to have Puerto Rico be its own independent nation at the time. As I talked about, you know, he hasn't been found, the money hasn't been found, but I wanted to have you set up a clip here because you did a lot of interviews and you recreated a lot of interviews from transcripts. Tell me about this clip we're going to see, because there are people who remember there being money handed out and they couldn't talk about where it came from, but they knew, right?
Yes, I had the pleasure of interviewing Isabel Osorio, who is a longtime resident of Hartford and community leader, artist, poet. And she actually lived next door to the lot where some of the money, apparently from the heist, was distributed alongside Christmas presents for children on Three Kings Day, a year and a half after the heist happened. And it was really kind of the moment at which it was finally known more broadly that this was not just a bank robbery, but really a political action that was connected to a broader struggle. And so many people who lived around there still remember, being around when the Christmas presents were handed out and when money was distributed to older folks from the community. And this is what this clip shows that you're going to see. And I'm hoping, Three Kings Day has also been in the news for you guys, because I know it's still an occasion that is widely celebrated in the community through the parade.
It
So
has,
this
and
is just
it
kind of a
was.
throwback to another celebration.
Yeah, it has, and it was in that community as well. Let's take a look at that clip.
I remember this day vividly, just having this truck sort of pull up. I remember three men dressed as three kings, somebody that stayed in the front, somebody who was in the outside, and one inside the truck. And I just remember toys being handed out, food, and everything was pretty efficient. Maybe it took less than an hour from my recollection. Then they handed out $20 bills. And we knew what it was connected to, what had happened with Wells Fargo a few years back. I just remember not being able to talk about it with anybody.
That's amazing to have those recollections, Sofia. What a great clip there. I know we have some video of the exhibit, so we have only about a minute left. People can still go check this out until February 8th. Who do you hope goes and checks out this exhibit?
Really, all sorts of folks from Hartford who remember this incident, and maybe some who don't, who will hopefully have a chance to learn about it and like I said, again, learn about this broader history. As part of the exhibition, there's also some works with newspapers from the period surrounding not just the robbery, but the trial. There's also a series of botanical prints made with plants and flowers from the area from Charter Oak, as well as from tobacco fields in the area, as well as some pieces made with stills from surveillance films shot by the intelligence division of the police department in Puerto Rico in the 60s and 70s. So, this is part of a larger show, and I hope folks have a chance to check it out and enjoy it. So far, the responses have been really wonderful, and it's just been really fulfilling for me to hear just how much this means to people and all of the personal memories that people have connected to this history.
Well, it certainly is a fascinating topic, one we've been talking about for decades. We're so glad that you looked at it and so glad that you joined us to talk about the exhibit. We hope people will check it out. Sofia Gallisa Muriente, thank you so much for being with us here on CT26.
Thank you again.
And that is CT26 for this week. CBS Sunday Morning is coming up next. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll, of course, meet you back here in Studio A next Sunday morning.